A lot of people were wondering why the man has not been given a name, even though we all know who he is and where he came from. Last week, Ricky Starks made his NXT debut without being given a name. The crowd chanted his name. The crowd knew who he was. We went all week wondering if WWE was going to change his name. We were wondering all week if WWE was going to allow him to be Ricky Starks. Contract signing was promoted for Tuesday. We get to Tuesday, and even during the segment, nobody mentioned who he was. Nobody mentioned him by name. Ava did not mention, Ethan Page did not mention, and Wes Lee did not mention Ricky Starks. It was at the end of the segment when Ricky actually signed his contract, and the camera panned into the contract on the table in front of Ava, and it said Ricky Saints, not Ricky Starks. I'm going to go over the segment, give you my thoughts and opinions on what they did with Ricky Saints last night on NXT today, right here on Off the Script of this February 19th, 2025. If you guys want the Solid Monster and myself live reactions to Ricky Saints last night on NXT as our beloved chat was breaking the news to us. We had a very good time with that last night on Tuesday Night Titans, episode 83. Go back and watch that. I posted the clip as well on my social media, on Twitter and on Instagram. But today, we're actually going to go over the segment, break it down, give you guys my thoughts and opinions on what happened last night and how I feel with this being his second week in on NXT. Contract signing was overseen by Ava, the general manager. Ricky Starks said he was proud to be there. He said there were some things he'd like to get off his chest. And before signing the contract, had a live microphone. Here we go, man. I'd like to hear what Ricky has to say. He said this is a dream that is now a reality. He said main eventing every NXT PLE was a reality, and winning the NXT Championship was a reality. This is both factual statements from Ricky Starks. He will be the NXT champion relatively sooner rather than later. He said he's the man in NXT. He said he'd show up and show out to the best of his ability, and right now, the revolution begins. Ethan Page interrupted the promo. And Ethan Page, we all know Ethan Page came over from AEW, so it was quite eye-opening to see both former AEW superstars in the ring together on NXT. And I said, this is a good first feud for him. I like this a lot. Ethan Page is out there, and he said that Starks shocked the world by showing up on NXT. He says he could guess that his first match would be a championship match. He said he was a genius to follow Ethan Page's playbook to a T. He said there was only one Ethan Page, though. Stark said he apparently had Page in his feelings and that he was wearing his insecurity as tight as the suit jacket that he was wearing last night. He says he was here to take the place to another level. Ethan Page did not believe Ricky Saints would take NXT to a different level. Page says as big of a superstar as he was, he wouldn't reach the bar that Page had set in NXT. He says they should be celebrating because Starks was signing his contract and Page beat Javon Evans at Vengeance Day. He said somebody always shows up to whoop that ass, so watch your back. Page started to say how Evans wasn't going to be around anytime soon, and Javon Evans came to sneak attack Ethan Page as they battled into the crowd at the Performance Center last night, over the barricade and out of the arena. Ricky Starks then said it was time to do what he was brought here to do before another interruption. Wes Lee. He grabbed a pen and Wes Lee showed up. He immediately cut for his theme music to cut off. He says there were rules around here, and number one is don't underestimate Wes Lee. Lee wanted to show Starks the ropes, and Starks says he'd do him one better and wanted him in a one-on-one match next week. Lee says it would be a one and done. Now, he tried to get a cheap shot in on Ricky Saints, but Ricky punched him and then clotheslined him over the top rope, signed the contract, did his pose, And the contract on the table, the camera zooms in, and it says Ricky Saints, with Vic saying Ricky Saints is NXT. The rollout for Ricky Saints, it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to kind of call him that when we know him as something else. The rollout of Ricky Saints was a bit different than what we got with Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill was given the superstar treatment. Red carpet rollout, bigger than ever. WWE had something to prove because Tony didn't really do much with Jade Cargill outside of that 508-day reign as TBS champion. The creative was very simplified, didn't really go anywhere, no real stories. She was very green. There wasn't much there. WWE sought to make her so much of a bigger deal, rolled out the red carpet, ESPN, TMZ, Sports Illustrated. I mean, she was literally all over the place. She shows up in the Royal Rumble, has a great debut, and everybody is on board with what Jade Cargill is doing. Now she's off television. She's in probably one of the bigger storylines right now going into WrestleMania season on who attacked her. We don't know who that is going to be just yet. She will be back imminently. But the rollout for both of these two big-name free agents coming over from AEW are vastly different. Jade was given the superstar treatment. Ricky is a bigger name to the pro wrestling space than Jade Cargill is, but they treated Jade as a much bigger deal, and Ricky never got the red carpet rollout. He never got the ESPN, Sports Illustrated, fucking blasted everywhere that he signed with WWE. He's basically here, he's arrived, and they're throwing him right into the fire because they know exactly how good he is, and they know that he could be the man at the top on NXT. So I quite like that. Let's get to work. We know what this guy's capable of. Let's not waste any time. We got him a lot sooner than we even anticipated because Tony Khan woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm just going to release Ricky Starks. Goodbye. And now he's here. Let's get to work. I like that. From last week to this week, I love the fact that WWE never said who he was. Now, it was very reminiscent. I've seen some comparisons to Scott Hall. And when he showed up in WCW, everybody knew who he was, but he never really said who he was. The commentators never really said who he was. Not the same thing, but I like the vibe of the mystique. We know who he is. But is he going to be who we think he is? Is he going to be something else? Is he going to be WWE-ized? Everybody thought that for the last 7 days. And I quite like that. It went from last week into this week. Even at Vengeance Day, he did a pre-cut promo. And he never said who he was. Nobody mentioned who he was. Everybody knows who he is. But nobody knows who exactly he is by name. And they even did it throughout the segment last night until the contract was shown on camera. And it was Ricky Saints. I like that. I do. I like the fact that they're throwing him in there with somebody as good as Wesley. I like that. I like the fact that his first feud could be realistically an ex-AEW guy in Ethan Page. So the familiarity is there to get across who he is and what he can do in that ring with somebody that's been in the trenches with him previously. I like that. Now, the match next week is not Ricky Saints against Wesley. It is Ricky and Javon Evans against Wesley and Ethan Page. They made it into a tag team match, and I'm assuming whatever happens next week will bleed into wherever Ricky goes for his first feud. The name. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the name sucks. The name is this. The name is that. A lot of people have asked, and it was the first thing that we said last night on TNT. Why is Ethan Page allowed to be Ethan Page? Why is Jade Cargill allowed to be Jade Cargill? Why is Jordan Grace allowed to be Jordan Grace? Why is Stephanie Vaquer allowed to be Stephanie Vaquer? And Ricky Saints can't be Ricky Starks. I get it. I understand that. That is a very logical question. On first instinct, human beings, they are usually going to go to the negative. I know that I do. I look at the negative before I ever see a positive. We laughed about it last night. I sat with it, watched the segment a couple of times. I went to sleep. I woke up this morning, had my cup of coffee. I'm getting my shit together for this video and for the work day ahead. And I said to a couple of buddies of mine, I don't mind the name. I don't. We've been through this same song and dance before. We did it with Finn Balor. Oh my God, Prince Devitt is now Finn Balor. What an awful name. Oh my God, Kevin Steen is now Kevin Owens. Oh my God, El Generico is Sami Zayn or Adrian Neville, right? I get it. We did the same thing with Gunther. He was Walter, and now he's Gunther. We did the same thing with Kana, Asuka. We did the same thing with Io Shirai, and now she's Io Sky. Does that name bother you? Do any of the names that I just mentioned bother you? I know Walter bothered me. Walter from, where he was on NXT UK to Gunther. It's a little bit of a take back, especially with the stories that came out around that same time as the influence behind the name, especially with Vince McMahon in charge. It's like, oh my God. Now I can't unsee Gunther. Now I don't know him, but Gunther. This is something that we're going to get used to. As a community, as a fan base, we are going to get used to it. It is going to be fine. Why the name change? Nobody knows. I'm going to read you exactly what Ricky Starks said on Busted Open Radio. But why the name change? The first thing that came to mind is that everything happened so quickly with Ricky coming over from AEW to WWE. They wanted to get pen to paper. They wanted him officially with the brand. And they said, you know what? We're just going to give you a new name and go through the logistics of Ricky Starks later. They can always change his name back to Ricky Starks. It's not a problem. But right now, he's known as Ricky Saints. Saints, the New Orleans Saints. He's from New Orleans. He's made that very abundantly clear. Saints has a New Orleans connection, which is fine. It's who he is. It's where he was raised and born. Fine. We'll get used to it. Another one of the reasons that I thought for the name change was, who's to say that it's not up to him and a decision that he made? Maybe this is something he wanted to do to wipe off the stink of what Tony Khan did to him in AEW. Maybe he wants a fresh slate. Perfectly fine by me if the man wants to go and be something else, coming from where he came from, where, Tony did a lot of damage by keeping him at home and keeping him iced. He wants to be now Ricky Saints. No more Ricky Starks. Fine. That is something we have to respect. If he feels that's best for his career moving forward, who are we to say anything? It's not a bad name. It's going to take a little bit of an adjustment period, but who's to say it wasn't up to him? Who's to say that upon early release, Tony didn't go to Ricky Starks and say, I'll let you go. You just can't be Ricky Starks over in WWE. You got to go by a different last name. You could be Ricky. Obviously, that's his name. But you got to go under a different character. You got to go under a different name, and I'll let you go early. Who's to say that wasn't in the contract for his early release? He didn't negotiate with Tony as he would go to WWE under someone else's name, a different name, and not Ricky Starks to get his early release from AEW. Who's to say he didn't do that? We don't know. At the end of the day, it's something that we're going to get used to. I actually quite like it. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period, but like anything else, and anything else that we've seen as far as one person coming in as something and then they get a different name in WWE, it's going to get to a point where it's going to roll off the tongue and you are not even going to remember Ricky Starks a month, 2 months from now. Ricky Saints is going to be who he is, and it's going to be a lot easier to roll off the tongue. Ricky Saints is going to be a lot more easier around WrestleMania season after WrestleMania because he's going to be fully integrated in the on-screen product. Ricky Starks, he was interviewed by Busted Open Radio and Bully Ray after the contract signing last night and said, AEW veterans, some AEW veterans, stuck their nose in my creative business. That shouldn't have happened. After the show, he was on Busted Open with Bully Ray, discussing his new name. He explained that as it's as close to Ricky Starks as you could get, it is definitely a tribute to New Orleans. He wants to pay respects to the city, which is a piece of home for him. So there you go. There you go. Again, who's to say it wasn't up to him completely to just wipe the stink from AEW off and go under a different name? Regarding his AEW departure, Starks denied that the hold on his AEW status was due to his appearances at past WWE events such as the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. He doubled down on Tony Khan's approval of his presence being at these shows. And he's made mention before this interview last night with Bully Ray that he was given clearance to go and do that. So if Tony lied to him, then that's on Tony. If Tony gave him the okay and then acted petty, that's on Tony. That's not on Ricky, and that's unfair because only bad comes from that, and then you lose the trust of not only Ricky, but everybody else. And not only that, you instill fear in the roster, and you don't have people in that locker room going up to the boss and asking in a very honest way things that they want or things that they may want to get across. And being open with your boss is something that should always be a thing. People won't do that if they know Tony's going to come back around and just switch the game up on them. Who wants to work in a place like that? Stark says, I can't tell you exactly what the moment was. You can say it was Punk leaving and things kind of fell apart after that. Absolutely. Probably agree with you on that. Or you could say that Ricky didn't play the politics game well enough. All right, for sure. There's so many things you can say. What I can say for myself is that when I got hurt in March, that was it. I never came back. And even then, I wasn't hurt. It was a precautionary thing where I got scared as I had a stinger. Then I was fine. After that, no dice, no communication, no nothing. And that is okay because I ended up here. And it's fine. Everything worked out. I don't know explicitly where it all went wrong. I can't point to one thing. I can say it was a storm of things probably. Did I do something that may have tipped them off? Sure. Asking for my release whenever, this past whatever. That could have been about it, right? But I never once did something willingly, and never once I was sabotaging anything. Regarding whether the release was for personal or professional reasons, Stark stated it was likely personal because if it had been professional, his departure wouldn't have happened the way that it did. I will say this, he says. There are some people who stuck their nose in my creative business that shouldn't have happened. Veterans. And that's it. I'll leave it at that. And if they got a problem with me, they got my number and text me about it. I think what it was is if it didn't work for their creative, then someone had to get the boot. That's how I see it. But I'm not trying to be negative in my thought process about it. If you want to step on me to get ahead in your illustrious career, everyone has an illustrious career. Everyone should have illustrious careers. It's perfectly fine. But at the same time, I'm not wet behind my ears. End quote. The veterans in question here, if I was to make a logical guesstimation, would be A, Chris Jericho, who I know for a fact is in Tony Khan's ear and is the reason why things are so bad there. B, love him dearly, Adam Copeland. And we all know that fabled night where Adam Copeland called Ricky Starks a mini rock, and then Ricky Starks went back at Adam Copeland calling him bug-eyed and basically saying, oh, gee, man, I haven't heard that one before. That one really sent me over the edge, quote unquote, with him being Edge previously in WWE. Adam Copeland probably didn't like that. Now, I think I read somewhere that they kind of patched that up and it was, let bygones be bygones type of deal. But who can you really trust? Maybe he did kind of hold some resentment over Ricky Starks in that moment. But it's very weird that after the whole CM Punk debacle and after the entire situation with him and Big Bill in that tournament to crown new tag team champions going into Dynasty, we never seen Ricky Starks again on television. We didn't see him for the rest of the year. And now he's here. And I know a lot of people would have loved to see Ricky Starks say more. I know people would have loved to see Ricky have some sort of mini pipe bomb on NXT television last night while he did have a microphone here with Bully Ray. He should have really expressed more. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. He won. He's here. He got his early release. He's got a new, fresh slate, a new persona. And we know Ricky is going to be Ricky. We know Ricky's going to cut that fucking charismatic and passion promo. We know Ricky's going to deliver in the ring. He doesn't need to say anything else. He's here. He won. And the sad thing is, more people are going to end up like Ricky. And I'm going to sit right here in this chair in front of this camera and continue to tell you that when those people get their release, they're going to end up winning as well. AEW is in a position right now where a lot of people don't want to be there. And a lot of people want out for various reasons. It's not very difficult to see why. They will get theirs one day, and they will end up like Ricky Starks. Not everybody's going to end up in WWE. Not everybody that gets released from AEW, WWE is going to scoop up. You know, AEW's got a lot of talent. WWE can't take them all. But at the end of the day, Ricky doesn't need to say anything. He's here. He's now integrated in 2 weeks on television. He's got his first match next week. He's got his first feud potentially in Ethan Page. He's winning. And I can't wait to see what he does. I don't mind the name. I love the way that they took week 1 into week 2. I love the camera shot on the contract telling you who he is without actually saying his name. Nobody mentioned his name. And now he is here. He's Ricky Saints, and we know he's going to deliver because we know exactly what he's capable of. I enjoyed it. I don't mind the name. We're going to get used to it. I think people blew up yesterday, and I'm very excited to see where he goes here on WWE television. Thank you guys for a great stream last night, and thank you for tuning into today's show. I really appreciate you guys. It's been a great month of February. Let's keep it rock and rolling tonight. I'll be live with Jesse for AEW Dynamite, and they got some really cool things happening going into Revolution, man. We'll talk about it tonight right here on the podcast. Hit that thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think down below of Ricky Saints. Anything you guys want to add, the comment section is yours. The more comments we get, the algorithm loves us even more. Also, hit that thumbs up. Let's try for 1,000 likes. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell for notifications and follow me on social media at JD from NY206, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Cameo. Thank you guys very much. I'll see you tonight live with Jesse for AEW Dynamite in the official post show right here on Off the Script. I'll see you guys later.